I told you on the call-in segment that I was going to do a deep dive into the Christianity and the Israel of it all, because I have had questions for quite some time, and apparently I'm not the only one. You're going to see two Christian women who are going to expose who the true indigenous people are and what this whole Israel concept is really about. I told you on call-in, I really do believe, and we're going to see who actually, translated this King James Bible. I really do believe that we have been played. I really do believe we've been taken for a ride. And if I am correct, I think that we have been a part of probably the biggest psyop of all time. And that is the Protestant denominations and this relationship with this Zionist colonial state of Israel. Check out this video here. We have two. We're going to start with this one. So they are starting to ask questions. Listen to this.
Let's start with our personal backgrounds of what we were taught about Israel, or what we believed about Israel prior to October 7th, 2023.
Yeah.
What did we know, hear, and or believe about Israel?
We already know that I grew up in a very conservative home as a pastor's kid. How I viewed Israel was the verses that we hear a lot of, like, those who bless Israel will be blessed. So I viewed it as that Israel as a country is special. It's chosen. Basically, we always want to be on the side of Israel. Always want to be an ally to Israel.
Who's we?
Christians.
Okay.
Well, and I would say America. I grew up with that understanding.
I was raised very Southern Baptist, very normal for our location currently. Definitely evangelical, conservative, Bible Belt, Southern. Not a surprise. And very much so raised in dispensationalism, rapture theology.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember reading the Left Behind series in late middle school and just thinking, this is the center of my faith.
Wow.
These things are going to happen, and I have to be one of these, the forefront of one of these people. And it just shot me right into it. I'm not an expert on it. I'm not teaching classes on it. I don't know how Israel falls in all of that, but I know that it was the belief that it was the epicenter of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And Jews were special and set apart in a different way. And just because they didn't believe in Christ, they were still God's people. And it was this whole thing. So all of my understanding of modern day Israel was wrapped up in end times theology.
And I completely understand where she is coming from. I told you guys before, I grew up in the church, and, I started asking questions as I got older, and apparently they weren't too fond of that, and it is what it is. And I'm not here to shame anybody for their religion. That's not my style. People can believe what they believe. And people also have different forms of spirituality. But to this point, what this woman just said here, that's what many of us were taught that grew up in the Protestant denominations, that the rapture would happen and that we had to have this relationship with Israel if we wanted to, be taken up in the rapture, and that when, God would come back, that every knee and every head would bow, and that everybody would basically be converted to Christianity. There's so much more to go into this. I don't want to get into all the specifics. I also don't want to scare some people, because revelations can be quite scary. So that's what a lot of us were taught. Then it gets to the point where you start to look a little bit further and you're like, okay, well, wait a minute now. Let's see who the indigenous people are. And people are starting to ask questions, especially after October 7th. People are starting to look into this a little bit more now. Again, these two women were raised as Christians. Listen to this part.
Palestinians have more ethnic and genetic ties to ancient Israel than modern Israelis.
Okay, then modern Israelis.
Yes. So current Israel is not the Israel of the Bible.
Current Israel, the state.
Yes.
Okay.
The people who are native and indigenous to that land actually do have genetic ties to ancient Israel. The people who make up modern day Israel are not from there,
Where are
Nope.
they from?
mostly Eastern European countries.
Because of I don't know, but like the migration or something that
Yes,
happened?
yeah. This comes
Pause. Remember not too long ago, after October 7th, we had a conversation on this show about the indigenous people. And there were a number of times I told you guys that if you actually look it up, Palestinians are Semites. So when people say that something is anti-Semitic, the Palestinians are Semites. It's not just Jewish people, it's also Arab people as well, right? So remember that it was Britain that decided that this is going to be a homeland for the Jewish people. And remember, the Rothschild were a part of this. Lord Rothschild, we went through this whole thing before as well. Theodore Herzl, the father of Zionism, was also, they made this decision, is that this is where they would go so that they would be safe, a safe place for them, of course, after the atrocities of the Holocaust, right? So before that migration, you had Palestinian people there. There were some Jewish people that were already there as well. But when this move happened and they came in, what essentially the goal of Zionism was for that place to only be for them. So we're talking about, these are people coming from Russia, Ukraine, Poland, what she said, like the Eastern European countries, coming over into a land that was already occupied. Sound familiar? But the ultimate goal was to make it so that it was only for them. So that meant the entire Zionist project was meant to push the Palestinian people off of that land. And before they even decided that Palestine was going to be the place of settlement, did you know they even looked at countries in Africa, like Uganda? So that plan was always to get them out of there and keep it just for the settlers. But obviously, if you try to push a population of people out, there is going to be some type of resistance. Keep that in mind when you think about the Iron Dome. That's why the Iron Dome is there, because they knew that the people would resist. So there was the Nakba. They pushed the Palestinian people out. A lot of the Palestinians that are in Gaza are refugees. And then you have Palestinians also, of course, in the West Bank. There are some Palestinians in Israel, but of course, not as many in the West Bank or Gaza. And even the Palestinians that live in Israel, especially the Christian Palestinians, have come forward and talked about the mistreatment that they have as well. The point is this. As I said before on this show, I don't remember anything in the Bible saying anything about this land is supposed to be for these Eastern Europeans. And that's if you even believe that. So the settlers that you see there from Poland, New Jersey, Brooklyn, they're settlers. They're not indigenous to the land. They moved there. They changed their name to make it sound like they are indigenous. Let's continue on. Listen to what she says here.
Comes from a historical professor, and he is brilliant. The majority of Palestinians are of Jewish descent. The majority of Palestinians, the people who are being annihilated right now, are of Jewish descent and are ethnically more Jewish than the European and American Jews who went and created Israel.
What did I tell you? See what I mean about the PSYOP? What did I tell you? They're indigenous. Let's continue.
So every time a Palestinian is murdered by an Israeli, a person who's more Jewish is murdered by a person who's less Jewish. It's true that the Israeli is practicing Judaism or is a secular Jew. And it's true that those Palestinians who are Christians and Muslims, whose ancestors converted to Christianity and Islam, but it's just a weird, ironic twist that the people who are closer related genetically to ancient Israel are the people who are being annihilated right now.
That is mind-boggling.
Yes, it is.
Sound familiar? Yeah. So we're going to point to a couple of things here. All right. So number one, if that is the case, what she just told you, which is what I believe based on the research that I have read, it makes more sense. That is the case. They're the indigenous people. Then let's go all the way back to the Bible days. If that's true, then that would mean that Jesus was a Palestinian Jew. And if that's true, then who is the picture of the white man with the blonde hair and the blue eyes in all of these churches? How do we know what Jesus actually looked like? Because the only time I remember in the Bible where they talk about a description of him is Revelations. And if you know of another time, let me know. I'm open. Let me know. Is Revelations where they said that, and he had hair of wool. Remember all this? So how do we know that the picture that you see in a lot of these churches, and a lot of black churches too now, don't get it twisted, this pale-faced man with long white hair and blue eyes, how do you know that's what Jesus looked like? Hello? Because see, here's another thing. Let's open up this here as well, because we're going to go a little bit deeper. Listen to what Hagee said here. This is Christina Amanpour. I think that's her name. Yeah, Christina Amanpour. Listen to what he said about why we have to have this relationship with Israel, and he gives the biblical reason.
You said God's foreign policy statement?
Yes,
God has foreign policy statements?
absolutely.
And his is pro-Israel?
Concerning the Jewish people, that's his foreign policy statement.
Hagee is a Zionist, a Christian Zionist.
A Christian Zionist is someone that believes that the Bible supports Israel. God begins in the foreign policy statement of Israel in Genesis 12:3, saying, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you.
We're going to look at that full statement. Okay. So Hagee is saying that U.S. foreign policy is because of a biblical scripture. That is Genesis 12. Let's take a look at Genesis 12. We're learning today. Class is in session. Let's go ahead and pull this up. Make this a little bit bigger for the peeps in the back. Based. So Genesis 12. This is what he's referring to. The Lord had said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Couple of things. Let's break this down into 3 parts. Number 1, the United States has separation of church and state. So even if you do believe this, why is the U.S. government implementing foreign policy based on a biblical scripture? There's that. 2, let's say that this is true. And we're going to get into who wrote all this. We'll get to that in a second. Let's say that this is true, okay? That this is what he said to Abraham. One of the other things that he said is, I will call you Israel, right? Like the people who follow you. Those are the followers of Abraham. But it really wasn't supposed to be a physical place. But for shits and giggles, let's say it is a physical place. If it is a physical place, and if it is true that the Palestinian people are the indigenous people, then that would mean that this physical place that is spoken of in the Bible is for the Palestinian people, not for people coming from Poland, Ukraine, Russia, New Jersey, if it is, you believe it's a physical place. 3, there are different interpretations of the Bible. So we can look at this and we can interpret this into different things. We can look at this and we can say, the Lord had said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. That could be any land. I will make you into a great nation. That could be interpreted into other things. And I will bless you. The reference back then in the Bible, when he said great nation, that could be described as a community and not a state, the creation of a state. I will make your name great and you will be a blessing. Again, he's talking to Abraham and about Abraham. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, whoever curses you, I will curse. He's talking about the followers of Abraham. So there are different interpretations. And I point to this sometimes because I tell people, reading biblical text, sometimes it kind of reminds me of reading Shakespeare. And sometimes people can read Shakespearean text and they may have a different interpretation. And so I took like all the different Shakespeare classes when I was in college, and people don't always have the same interpretation of his text. So that's another thing to consider. So now we got to go to the next part. If this is the case, who translated the King James Bible? So let's go ahead and pull this up here. Make this a little bit bigger for the people in the back. Check this out. Who wrote the King James Bible? All right. Let's go down here. Let there be light, my brother's keeper, fight the good fight. A number of most well-known phrases in the English language originated not in novels, plays, or poems, but in a seminal translation of the Bible, the King James Version, which was published in 1611 at the behest of King James I of England. England. Sound familiar? Again, who was the one that decided that Palestine was going to be the place that was going to be the safe settlement place for Jewish people after the Holocaust? It was Britain. Let's go on. It is likely that the most famous translation of the Bible and was the standard English Bible for nearly 3 centuries. Many people think that it's so named because James had a hand in writing it, but that is not the case. As king, James was also the head of the Church of England, and he had to approve of the new English translation of the Bible, which was also dedicated to him. So if James did not write it, who did? To begin with, there's no single author. One individual, Richard Bancroft, an Archbishop of Canterbury, was notable for having a role of overseer of the project, something akin to a modern editor of collection of short stories. The actual translating of the King James Version was done by a committee of 47 scholars and clergymen over the course of many years. So we cannot say for certain which individual wrote a given passage. We will highlight this here. The actual translation of the King James Version was done by a committee of 47 scholars and clergymen. Who were the scholars? Does anybody know? Does anybody have a list of the names? Anybody? Who were the clergymen? Who are they? So this translation was done by men that were selected by King James I. How do you know that the translation that they created, which became known as the King James Version, how do you know that's the correct translation? How do we know? I'm not asking you to change your faith or anything. I'm just telling you to ask the right question. Because to be honest, we don't know. We can say we believe, but we don't know. Now let's put all these pieces together. King James of England, he selected 47 scholars and clergymen to translate the Bible into the King James Version, which is the one that is predominantly used at the Protestant denominations. He made that decision. He's in England. England is the one that decided, along with Lord Rothschild, that Palestine was going to be the new home for Jewish people after the Holocaust where they can feel safe. So what I'm trying to say here is this translation of the Bible kind of put things into motion. And you can even read the King James Version of the Bible, and you may come up with your own translations. So I guess my question here is, how do you know that what you have been reading or what you were taught from that version of the Bible is the correct translation? Because I'll be honest with you, I grew up in the church and I honestly cannot tell you. I can't sit here and say I do know. I don't. And if we go back to what those women were saying, and we think about the fact that the Palestinian people are the indigenous people, and you had settlers brought in to claim the land as theirs, which is not a newbie around the world. I still tell you this is the final stage of colonialism because Israel isn't done, in my opinion. The Bible, the Palestinians were the indigenous people. And at the same time, you have a pale-faced white dude picture in all these churches with blonde hair and blue eyes. If that King James Version of the Bible isn't even the correct translation, then ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people have been a part of the greatest psyop of all time. And if you want to put it together with what Hagee said when he said that the U.S. foreign policy is based on the scripture, well, then it all makes sense. I mean, it's like people have to listen. People have different beliefs, different religions, etc. It is what it is. I'm not telling you got to run away from wherever you are. That is your choice. All I'm asking you to do is just ask the right questions. Because we're talking about something that has been passed on to numerous churches all across the world. Numerous pastors all across the world have been preaching to their congregation for decades that Israel needs to be there. It has a right to exist. And it is crucial to our eternity, when in reality, they're not even indigenous. So if you believe that, you need to ask the right questions. Some people aren't going to like that segment, but here's another part to this. And let's say you don't believe any of that. If you are Christian, why are you okay with Christians being treated this way in Israel? Listen to what Matt Gaetz says here.
Evangelical Christians love Israel. It's a land with a 4,000-year connection to our faith. But with the current erratic spasms of the Netanyahu government, the love may be unrequited. Is Israel an unwelcoming place for Christians? A new look into correspondence between U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee and the Israeli government raises questions about whether Christians are being mistreated by Israel. Huckabee alleges that's what's happening. The ambassador sent a letter to the Israeli Interior Minister accusing Israel of blocking Christian groups from entering the country. As a private citizen, Governor Huckabee personally led Zionist Christians on such tours. Now, Ambassador Huckabee initially met with the government of Israel to plea for the Christians who wanted to come and enjoy the Holy Land. But those pleas were ignored. Now Huckabee is threatening reciprocal punishment against Israel and their visa seekers. wanting to come to America. He cited harassment and negative treatment of Christian groups. The nerve of Israel to demand America's weapons and money, but then refuse our touring Christians is astounding. About 3 billion people on the planet Earth tie their faith to the geography around Israel. And I believe everyone needs a little more of the golden rule. Treat others as you would want to be treated. Some will criticize this segment and say that the problem of Christians being harassed in or by Israel is overblown. But it's not me saying it. It's Ambassador Huckabee. Is Ambassador Huckabee an anti-Semite now because he's criticizing the government of Israel? Of course he isn't. I wonder if any voices inside the Israeli government have spoken about Christians being harassed or harmed. Here's Isaac Herzog, the president of Israel in 2023.
In recent months, we've seen very serious phenomena towards the Christian denominations in the Holy Land. Our brothers and sisters, Christian citizens, feel attacked in their places of prayer, in their cemeteries, and on the streets.
Christians in Jerusalem's Old City say they are often harassed, spit on, and even physically attacked by religious Jewish youth.
But this is who they telling you that you got to support.
I view this phenomenon as extreme and unacceptable in any shape or form. This phenomenon needs to be uprooted.
Earlier incidents include the desecration of a Protestant cemetery on Mount Zion, an attack on international Christians during a day of prayer for Jerusalem, and harassment at a Messianic concert in Jerusalem.
We must respect the members of all religions. We've committed to this since the dawn of our existence. This is the most basic commandment of love your neighbor as yourself.
I'm sorry to end it right there, the expression on his face. But again, like that's who they want you to support. And that's how they treat you. It's basically you're seen as a means to an end. Christians see Israel as a means to an end. Israel sees Christians as a means to an end for them. But I just see a lot of people, and I like I told you, listen, I grew up in the church, but I did start to ask questions. And the thing that I have to just say is that we don't really know. And we can say we believe, but I have no proof. I just don't have it. And if that is the case, we are looking at the greatest psyop of all time. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.